Hello everyone. My name is Selma and I'll be animating today's webinar. I just wanted to thank you all for being here with us today on one of our first webinars of this season on how to send out your first campaign. Today we're going to be going over the essentials of email marketing, what it means, what it represents, and we'll be doing that through CakeMail. So on the menu today, we're going to start off with what is email marketing, its definition and what it represents, its different strengths, the differences between email marketing and transactional emails, two very important points, loyalty and engagements, the laws and best practices that you need to be putting in place for a successful campaign, managing your contacts, creating your first campaign, and finally, what constitutes a good result. Now, let's get started with what is email marketing. Now, what it means is essentially the sending of personalized messages to your audience. So be it commercial, promotional, or informational messages to your whole list of contacts. Now, there are a few key points that you need to remember. The fact that it is targeted and personalized sending, and that it depends on the tone of your campaign, be it commercial, promotional, or again, informational. It all depends on the tone that you want to give to your campaign. Lastly, a very important point, your list of contacts. We're going to touch base on that later as we go through the presentation, but this is a very important point that I would like you all to remember. Lists of contacts need to be based on permission and consent. Now, onto the strengths. Let's start with the really big one, the return on investment you get from email marketing. Now, if you were to compare it with any digital marketing tool, if you were to compare it with SEO or paid social media, email marketing is probably one of the most profitable forms of marketing for your company. Be it a small or bigger company, it allows you to get a very interesting return. We estimate that roughly $1 of investment on email marketing roughly equals to $36 in revenue and return. Now, that's a very important margin and would make it worth it on the long run. Two other very big strengths for email marketing is engagement and the fact that it's measurable, that it has measurable results. When I talk about engagement, I mean that email marketing allows you to reach out to your audience. It keeps them in touch. It keeps them in the loop of things, and it allows you to reach out to them easier in the forms of newsletters or anything else. And when it comes to measuring the results, you can clearly see who opened it, who didn't, who subscribed and who unsubscribed, who clicked on what. And in the long run, that really gives you very valuable information for leveraging better results in the long run. Now, a little distinction that needs to be made, the differences between marketing emails and transactional emails. Email marketing basically aims to maintain a relationship between yourself and the customer or the member that subscribed to your newsletter. It can inform or sell, but it is most importantly based on permission. You need to have the consent of whoever is subscribed to your list to send them the emails. When it comes down to transactional emails, on the other hand, it involves a message that is sent to confirm a business transaction. Think of it sort of like a password, an invoice, or anything of the sorts. It is based purely on a business relationship. Now again, why should you be sending out a newsletter? Two very important points, loyalty and engagement. When we talk of loyalty, it's mostly because it helps you maintain a very regular relationship with your customers, with your potential clients, or any volunteer of your organization. It allows you to essentially reach out to them in a much easier way and to keep them in the loop with consistent newsletters. It also helps you engage with them. It helps you foster connections within a community. It's very important for sharing updates, reviews, informations, or anything of the sorts. Now, we've gone over newsletters and what they represent, but they do have a few elements to them. We're just going to go over a few elements that you could mention in your newsletter as sort of content ideas for your first campaign. Now, Yes, you can share latest news updates or any kind of content about your company or website, but you could also be including exclusive content, sort of like articles, reports, videos, and so on. Promotions and special offers to sort of reward your subscribers are also very interesting, as well as invitations to events, educational content. For example, you would be sharing newsletters with tips, tricks, webinars, for example, and so on. It could be testimonials and case studies as well, or entertaining content. It essentially just all depends on the tone that you want to give to your newsletter, whether it aligns with your vision, whether it aligns with your goals. It is up to you. Additionally, this is something very, very interesting that we're definitely going to be going more in depth with as webinars go on. It is automation. You can, for example, automate emails depending on your lists. For example, you could have two lists. One you would be sending welcome and thank you messages to, for example, upon subscription, and others where you would be sending out reminders, updates, or any kinds of newsletter and content. So these are very interesting, and we're going to be having very interesting webinars in the future if that's something that interests you. Now, before you're sending out your first campaign, there are a few laws in place that you absolutely need to know about and, most importantly, respect. When it comes to anti-spam laws, in Canada, we have the CASL, which essentially is built on three main requirements. Consent, you need to have the consent of whoever you're sending out emails to. You need to identify, identify information in your email. For example, we always keep your address at the footer of the email. This is mandatory and necessary for your campaigns. And lastly, you would have to provide an unsubscribing button and mechanism. Basically, you need to be able to have the consent to opt in and out of emails as you go on. In the United States, there is a very similar law, and that would be the CAN-SPAM. When it comes to the privacy protection laws, that's the privacy protection laws regarding the data that you gather and you collect from your subscribers. Essentially, in Quebec, since the 22nd of September of last year, there is the Law 25 that's actively in place, and that requires that you announce essentially what you will do with the personal data of all your clients that you're sending out newsletters or emails to. In Europe, the equivalent to that would be the GDPR. Now, a few best practices to keep in mind in order to really get your campaign shining. First of all, your list hygiene and your authentication. Now, we're going to talk about the latter one in depth later, but essentially what list hygiene means is you need to take into account who unsubscribed from your list, who is making spam complaints, which is very interesting and important because it can really set you back, and who's engaging with your content. You want to be able to build a list that is built on quality contacts. It needs to be people that react, that engage, that interact with your campaigns. This is why we really do not advise you to rent out or buy out lists, but rather build your own throughout the time. It will give you a better quality and a better campaign in the long run. Now, authentication. This is mostly following the Google and Yahoo guidelines that have just been updated last February. This is a very important point. What it means essentially is identifying who's the email sender. Now, let's say you have a domain. There are a few protocols in place that we're definitely going to go over later, but these protocols need to be respected in order for you to authenticate your domain. This will allow for better deliverability, and this will allow your emails to reach your senders. Now onto a little CakeMail presentation. We're going to go over a quick demo for all you starters. We're just going to go over the basics of how you can essentially manage your contacts, create your first campaign, and essentially how to reach a good result. Now, as you can see, I'm on the dashboard, and today I'm logged in as Katie, who's a huge cat fanatic. This is purely based on my own preference, but Katie has a clothing line for cats. So as you log in, the first thing you will see is your dashboard with all kinds of widgets. But I want you to really pay attention for a second to this Get Started widget, which is essentially a step-by-step guide on how to send out your first presentation. So you have a few steps that are outlined. I've already crossed out a few. Do not worry, you will as well. But essentially, this is a walk step-by-step on how to send it out. Right now, we're going to get started with your contacts. Again, there are a few webinars that are planned and scheduled that will go more in depth. This is just to give you a brief idea on what each thing represents. So as you log in, your first thing that you would want to do is maybe import your contact list. You could either add one contact at a time or import whole lists. You can either do that by importing a CSV file or copy pasting directly from a spreadsheet. This is what we're going to go with today. As you can see over here, I do have my little list of cat fanatics that I'm just going to select all and paste onto my list. Okay. Maybe go again. Select all, copy, and paste it here. As you can see, I have different columns with the names, the emails, and different attributes. Here I have kittens, senior cats, long hair cats, or short hair cats. It all depends on what you want your list to have and the different attributes that you want to add to it. For example, you could add language, you could add anything to your list. Now, once that's done, I'm just going to go down and press continue. Again, you can add tags, you could add columns, clear out sections. You can do whichever you want. A very important point, we've already talked about it earlier, but you need to have consent and you need to confirm that you have consent. This is something that you need to make sure of prior to adding these contacts. Now that once it's done, we've crossed out another one. We've added our contacts. We can just close that one. And as you can see, you have a list that it's built with all your contacts in them. Now here's where you can click if you have more than one list. A very interesting point here is segmentation. You can also make segments based on your contact list. For example, let's say we want to create a new one. So I'm just going to create segment. I'm going to title it short hair. And basically what I want is only the short hair cats to show up. And I'm going to press yes, because this is the condition that I have. I'm going to save and exit, and that's going to create a little segment that I can select. For example, here I have segments for only short hair cats, and that shows up. Now, once you're done with that, there's a very, very interesting feature that we have. I'm just going to briefly mention it, but this is also something we're going to be talking more about later. Forms. You can create forms for people to subscribe directly to your list. Say, for example, you have a website, you want to have people that visit your website subscribe to your newsletter. You can just go on, create a form, copy paste that link, and have people and visitors of your websites directly subscribe into it. This is directly going to reflect onto your list, and this is going to directly add the subscribers to your subscribing list. Now onto the campaigns. Before sending out your campaign, I've talked about it earlier, but this is very, very important. You should have an authenticated domain. You can do that by basically clicking on the arrow here, going into senders, and adding your domain. Making sure that your protocols are in place, that your domain is authenticated, is going to assure that you have great deliverability for your campaigns. Otherwise, unfortunately, the risks of ending up in the spam folder for your contacts is very, very high. So you want to avoid that. Make sure that your domain is authenticated. You can simply enter it. As you can see, I already have an authenticated one because I'm using a CakeMail domain. But you can just add it, press authenticate, and that's gonna forward all the instructions that you need to follow in order to have a fully authenticated domain. Now onto the campaign, I can just go here. As you can see, I've already imported my brand. So a very nice thing you can do is import your brand, import your logos, your colors, and everything that you want, and just directly import it and use it for templates. Now you could choose to build a template from scratch if that's something you would want. You can do that, or you can just use a template that's already made by a designer. We do have a very nice choice of templates you can pick from, design and personalize to your tastes, or you can clearly, obviously, create one from scratch. Now, as you see, we're on the editor. We have a few things that we can pick from. We have content, rows, and settings. Now, let's start off with the rows. The rows are essentially empty blocks that you can just pick out that will give you spacings or different little columns that you can put things in. You could put many things, you could only put one. I'm just gonna go with this one. And I'm gonna add it here. Again, drag and select, and that's just gonna show up on your newsletter. You can obviously add things to it. You can add titles, paragraph, lists, images, and so on. For example, let's just say I'm gonna add a picture here and a paragraph over here. If you would like to add pictures, you can simply click, browse, and that takes you over here. You can upload, import, and search for free stock pictures, whichever suits your needs. I'm just gonna select this one because again, I am selling cat clothes. So this is what I'm doing. You can write anything here. You can obviously change sizes, fonts, colors, whichever suits your needs. And once you have something that you're satisfied with, you can preview it before sending it. So for example, over here, I can preview it. I can see what that would look like on desktop. I can see what that looks like on mobile version. And the very nice feature is that you can also see it on dark mode. This is why we are insisting on getting designer templates, because as a starter, you might not be aware of all the different intricate details that come with a template, but our designer templates allow you to completely forget about the hassle. You can just personalize it to your liking and send it right away. Now, once that's saved, I'm just gonna press save, continue. Oh, misclick. You can just press continue, and then you can just set your titles. You can just schedule it. For example, I have no title campaign. I'm just gonna say cat hoodie discount. You can add your subject line. That's the one that's gonna show up as you send it to your contacts. For example, cat discount, 50% off.
If you're looking for, sorry to intervene,
Yeah, no worries. Yes.
Selma. If ever clients run out of ideas when generating a subject line, we also added generation with AI that can help recommend certain subject lines based on a subset that we've suggested, and then once that's set, you could select from that list that comes down. If not, that's it. You can write and you can type in your own, and yeah, that's it. I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for mentioning it, Alex. It's a very nice feature. It basically removes all the hassle of having to think of something yourself. You could just click on generate subject, respect a few best practices, and then that's going to recommend subject lines for you. These are very important because that's essentially what what your contact sees as you send out your email. Now, of course, you can pick out your list. I only have one list. I'm going to pick out that one. But for example, assuming we wanted to add the segment that we talked about earlier, if I just wanted to select one segment, for example, only for short-haired people, I would click on this and then I could select my segment. Again, as you can see, I have an authenticated domain. That's a very important point. And I could either send out as soon as possible, which means immediately, or schedule it for another time. Say, for example, I want it sent on the 28th. I could do that. I could just make sure everything is as I like, and then I can either send a test or directly send my campaign. In my case, I'm already scheduling it to be sent. Now that it is done, we are back here. This is essentially some of the things that you can do with using CakeMail, but of course, we're gonna have other webinars that go more in depth on what you can't do, automations, different things you can do with your contacts, like adding tags and filters, or adding forms to your website. Obviously, you can have different templates, you can click on different buttons and just explore the whole platform on your own. But if you ever find yourself stuck with anything, just know that we have a great support team that does not hesitate to answer your emails. So if you do have any questions, please feel free. And yeah, this is it for me. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
sure. Selma, if you want, we can just go and show also the stats
Oh
to the
yeah,
people once a campaign is sent out.
that's a very good point. For example, I just wish to reschedule this one.
Yeah, you can. So obviously, when you schedule a campaign, CakeMail is going to wait 1 full minute before sending it out. You'll see right there as well. You have the possibility to attach a campaign to your Google Analytics pages as well. So when you schedule your campaign, you'll see that page in green as you could see. The reason why we put a 1 minute buffer is to allow you to go back and edit that campaign in case you would have made a mistake or thought about something last minute. You can go back and do what Selma went there and did to reschedule. And after that full minute, that campaign's gonna be
Sent out.
it's gonna be sent out exactly.
As you can see, my campaign just went from Outbox, where generally they would keep your scheduled campaigns, and it went directly to sent, meaning that it's being delivered to all my contacts. And let's just say you want to be able to see the results of your campaign, you can just click on it, and that gives you all the performance indicators that you might want to look at. Your open rate, how many people opened it and the total opens, who clicked on it and how many people clicked on it, all the links or URLs that are in your campaign. There's also a very interesting heat map that basically shows you which link and where they're located and how many people clicked on it. So let's think of it as like a map of the places that were most clicked on. The unsubscribe rate, you can clearly see the people who unsubscribed. The delivery rates, as you can see, I have an authenticated domain, meaning that all my emails were successfully delivered. That's very, very nice. Sometimes they can bounce back, but with an authenticated domain, you should not have anything to worry about. If you wish to, for example, see per contact activity, you can also do that. You can see who exactly clicked on it, who opened it, and who unsubscribed or who flagged you as spam. For example, here I can see that it is sent to all my list. Assuming people start opening their emails, you could clearly see who clicked, who opened, who unsubscribed, and who did what. Once
Exactly.
that's
And
done, yeah,
sorry to interrupt you again.
please.
And also, uh, sometimes over time, you'll have clients that have maybe a temporary problem with their email address. So they didn't, for example, they had a problem with their DNS server or a temporary downtime. So when that happens, it's what we like to call a soft bounce. You will see that in the bounce tab, and you'll have the option here to filter a soft bounce and sorry, or a hard bounce. And a hard bounce is when uh, an email address is confirmed to be in existence, whereas the soft bounce is where the email address has been detected to have a temporary problem that could be resolved over time. So we will wait and allow the subscriber to maybe address the issue before declaring it as a hard bounce. So at the next campaign, we'll resend to that email address And after X amount of time, if the problem has not been resolved, then the system will declare it as a hard bounce. It's also important to know that CakeMail does handle all the bounces and the unsubscribes automatically. So when you go to send out your campaign, uh, the hard bounces and the unsubscribes are filtered out when sending out your campaign. They are not counted as in your active contacts count. So if you have a contacts plan, the hard bounces and unsubscribes are not counted. They are, however, important to keep in your list because this becomes a fail-safe for you to avoid having to re-import them in the list by mistake and maybe causing damage to the reputation of your domain while doing this.
Yeah, this is all very important. Thank you, Alex. It's especially important because in the long run, that really impacts your list hygiene. So whenever you send out a campaign, just make sure you get a quick glance at the performance and the activity of your contacts. Because, for example, this is a hard bounce, meaning there is clearly a problem with the way this address was typed out. But at the end of the once you're done with all of this, you can obviously export all the activity. If you need it for reports or anything of the sort, you can just press export or customize it for your liking. Now that this is done, I think we've gone over most of the things that you would want to look at. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate. As I said earlier, we do have a support team, so if you ever need any help with any issue you're facing, our team is more than happy to address it. And we do have other webinars coming up if you'd like to know more about contact lists, automations, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Selma. We'll just wait here in the chat. If anyone has questions, please feel free to send us questions via the chat. If not,